Good evening. I'm Jason Greenwald, and this is The Fresh Wire, recorded April 21st, 2024. A TikTok ban could actually kick in as soon as next year after the House of Representatives vote on a very bipartisan bill. Target ditching physical media, especially DVDs, for its stores across the country, and it's not the first one to do so. A big battle for the best of AI with numerous different chatbots and image generators, Meta now kicking it into high gear after a big update. Video game emulators, including for a multitude of different consoles and handhelds, have been taking over Apple's App Store after a recent revise for one of its policies for the App Store itself. An intriguing update into the troubling developments surrounding next-gen TV, otherwise known as ATSC 3.0, as TV channels start to mix things up a bit in its interface, and a credit card built for the most die-hard Xbox video gamers. This is all the latest in technology, entertainment, and everything in between. Hey everyone, this is Jason Greenwald, and thank you again for tuning in to this week's episode. I understand and I apologize. I know last week I said this was going to be on every Friday, but things got in a bit of a mix-up, and I am here to do it on the weekend. Special episode. First off, I want to kick things off with a record-breaking day set by the one and only, the musician, absolutely beloved Taylor Swift. The Tortured Poets Department having a huge record-breaking first day on Spotify, surpassing 300 million streams. The service updated the news early Saturday, saying history has been made. Fortnite, the album's Post Malone featuring first single, set the record for the platform's most streamed song in a single day, topping Adele's Easy On Me, set back in 2021. A huge deal, as you all clearly know at this point. Taylor Swift released her new album, The Tortured Poets Department, and then being a double album surprise, The Anthology, and it's, as I've said, receiving hundreds of millions of streams across all different types of platforms. It's a huge deal. It looks like a lot of fans, Swifties rather, have been deeply enjoying the album. And of course, it also broke records by when it was a pre-saved album on the countdown page in Spotify history just a day before it arrived. Like I said, a 31-song deluxe special edition, and it's a big deal. Keeping in mind, before this album came out, she previously held the record for most streams in a single day. Previous benchmarks set by 2022's Midnights and 2023's 1989, Taylor's version. Congrats to the musician, beloved musician, and I can't wait to see what she does next. I actually listened to most of the songs on the album so far, and I gotta say, it is pretty good. I wouldn't exactly call myself a Swiftie, but I do appreciate her music, and I do definitely see the qualities that she has in them. Speaking of qualities, the Writers Guild of America Awards happened Sunday night last week, and a lot of big movies, understandably, and of course shows, won center stage. Two of the awards going to HBO drama Succession, the most of any series, for Best Drama Series and also for Best Drama Episode. The WGA Awards, also known as, recognize the best of 2023's television and film via its annual event held this year at the Hollywood Palladium for the West Coast edition and at New York's Edison Ballroom for the East Coast ceremony. Other big winners including American Fiction, The Bear, Netflix's limited series Beef, and the new show on HBO, The Last of Us, which has a season 2 currently in development. Of course, also HBO's Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. Some very big awards. HBO/Max leading all outlets with 5 awards, Netflix winning 3. Congrats to everyone involved, and I can't wait to see what comes around next year. Now, that was a little bit of entertainment. We're going to get now into a very hot topic involving TikTok. If you didn't hear from one of the headlines, a big bill that was passed in the House of Representatives could lead to the end of TikTok as we know it in the United States. This is actually not the first time they passed a bill like this. The last one was also very bipartisan. Actually, very similar vote count as well. This bill, if you don't know, could lead to the ban of the app in the country unless its Chinese parent company ByteDance divests it, which is notable considering the amount of impact that this app has. TikTok specifically, it being owned by a Chinese parent company, hasn't exactly shown its negatives in a very direct way, at least not yet, or if it ever will. And previously, it was sent to the United States Senate for a vote, and it seemed to have stalled. So now the House of Representatives have attached it to other critical bills that were also passed, including aid to Israel, the Indo-Pacific region, which more specifically Taiwan, and Ukraine. A very big one there. And they were all put together in one bill and has been sent to the U.S. Senate. U.S. President Joe Biden has already signaled that he would sign this into law, this whole package, and previously said the same thing with this TikTok ban. He said if it's sent to his desk, he will sign it. And it looks like a vote, or at least some procedural action, is set to take place this upcoming Tuesday in the U.S. Senate. If it passes, it would lead to 9 months for ByteDance to sell off the company to what I assume a U.S. company or group of people at least that are willing to acquire the company or acquire TikTok specifically. So this is obviously a huge deal. The previous TikTok ban act bill previously gave 5 to 6 months for the company. Now it's 9 months, and if necessary, if there's progress toward a sale, it gives Joe Biden 90 days to extend the sort of time limit. Obviously a huge deal in numerous different ways. What previously thought to have been a big split has become very bipartisan because of the worries of Chinese influence to the United States. Of course, this is a huge deal. It could lead to the end of TikTok. Every time ByteDance or representatives of TikTok mention this, they don't say could or would. They call it a ban bill. And from what I read a few years ago, the Chinese government has indicated they would not allow ByteDance to sell off the assets involving TikTok to any sort of company, let alone the United States-based company. So this could be the end of TikTok. But of course, 9 months with a possible 90 days does mean it goes into next year. So now all of a sudden, you could have the indication after former President Donald Trump has put forward that he doesn't think a ban on TikTok, or the rather, is necessary. Now, I'm not going to get political. I will say I'm not a huge fan of TikTok, but I have used it every now and then, and I've used alternatives, and I will say TikTok, I don't know what it is with their algorithm that makes it so special, but it does work. Alternatives, for example, Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts. They are very different, and they don't really figure out my algorithm, which is very interesting considering the amount of time I put into those two other platforms. Videos that come up on my platform is, to say the least, nowhere near as enjoyable as the ones I get on TikTok. So I don't have a take on the sort of bill. I do understand it's part of a package of bills that are more necessary, for example, military aid to Ukraine and Israel and humanitarian aid to Gaza. So what the Senate does with it will be very all eyes on situation. And of course, I will keep you all up to date with that. If it passes the Senate and President Biden signs it, I'll definitely mention it, probably the first topic in next week's episode. Now, a huge topic I also have to jump into. It's a very, very big one, a very personal one. Involves Sony's beloved franchise, LittleBigPlanet, and it's not good news. Early this week, the official LittleBigPlanet Twitter.com/X account put up what they call an important message regarding the LittleBigPlanet service and online features, and I'm just going to read out the statement. Due to ongoing technical issues which resulted in the LittleBigPlanet 3 service for PS4 being taken offline temporarily in January 2024, the decision has been made to keep the service offline indefinitely. All online services, including access to other players' creations for LittleBigPlanet 3, are no longer available. User-generated content stored locally on your PS4 will remain available. Any new UGC, user-generated, you create can be played on your PS4 but not shared. Offline features such as the campaign will remain playable. Thank you for your support. Well, that is extremely disappointing. If you don't know, if you couldn't tell from the post itself, services were taken down in January 2024, but at the time it was thought to have been temporary, which meant that it would come back and this decade's worth, millions of user-made levels would come back. There could be an attempt to archive it, which was not something anticipated beforehand. It just went down unexpectedly with no hesitation, and there was no expected opportunity to archive these beloved levels from as early as the late 2000s, or at least early 2010s. Keeping in mind, LittleBigPlanet 3 supported levels from previous titles, LittleBigPlanet 1 and 2 from the PlayStation 3. LittleBigPlanet 3, of course, was also on PS3, but services for that title, that version, apparently shut down in 2021 due to insecure netcode and Sony deciding it's not worth the time to fix that up. Unfortunately, it was not worth it, I guess, this time for the PS4 version, and now it is not possible to play any levels from any of the LittleBigPlanet titles. I think LittleBigPlanet karting was shut down as well a while back. I might be wrong on that, but even then it was just racing-related levels anyway. But now, with this gone, there is no version of LittleBigPlanet that is playable online officially. And that does mean all of the user-made levels from the past 15 years or so, confirmed millions of levels, are gone permanently. No way to access them. Very, very, very disappointing. Every single level made by a player since 2008. And again, no effort was put into archiving these, at least not a big pronounced one, because it was expected that this was going to come back. And not only that, but when they took the servers down without any hesitation, I swear this should be illegal in some capacity, but when they took the servers down, they said it was going to come back, and they didn't give any notice that they were going to take down the servers anyway. A huge amount of content is permanently lost unless you archived any of these levels just on your own. There are efforts, I think one's called Beacon, that are being put forward that people can, through hacking their console, whether it's PS3 or PS4, allowing you to connect to private, unofficial servers to, at least to a degree, play LittleBigPlanet with your friends or with others online again. But that has no impact to the levels that were on Sony's official servers. Those are now gone. Now, I read somewhere that these servers still exist, which means Sony hasn't wiped them clean. So there could be an effort to bring them back, at least if enough backlash or enough of a community response comes out. Of course, that's extremely unlikely. The only recent title that released with the beloved main character Sackboy was Sackboy: A Big Adventure, which released with the PlayStation 5's launch back in November 2020. And since then, they've released updates, costumes here and there, functionality, but it's no LittleBigPlanet 4. It's literally a mainline adventure game with very little customization. So, yeah, extremely disappointing for Sony, and I'm actually a little ashamed. You know, I grew up playing LittleBigPlanet 2 and 3 years and years and years ago on PS3 and PS4, and I had a great time with them. My younger sister also had a fantastic time playing them. It's what got her into playing video games, period. It was one of the first games she actually ever played. So, very disturbing something like this can happen. I've seen some people online compare this to Ubisoft's The Crew, which was recently closed down and even revoked from some people's game libraries digitally, if you bought the game digitally, because there is actually no way to play that game, as far as I know, because the servers, it relied on Ubisoft servers. So when those shut down, the game became a paperweight. And now, with the game being removed, you can't even tell people, hey, I had The Crew. And now you have no way to prove it, unless you got it physically, in which case it's still a beloved little place to put your cup on, the disc specifically. People are comparing that as that game is now lost media and that's gone, but in that LittleBigPlanet 3, you can still play its offline campaign. But the difference is millions of levels are gone. Millions. That's unacceptable. And I hope Sony does something, an opportunity for some way to upload these levels, even if there's no longer a way to upload new ones, just some way to have these levels be playable, because it's actually, genuinely, to me, it's disturbing that this can happen. There was no notice that the servers were going to be permanently shut down. They said temporarily, which is, that's fine. There was no expectation, it's shutting down in 30 days so everyone can come on and archive the levels themselves. No, there was no notice, so millions of levels are now gone. And it's very disappointing, and I'm very, very just disappointed. Hopefully, Sony does something about it. And if they don't, well, this will set a very big stain on their company, probably for a while. Their reputation definitely got damaged, and I'm very disappointed. But one thing I definitely have to also mention as a hot topic is the second act, or rather, the second group of stores doing something that is not very well received. Target confirming it's all but completely ditching DVDs in physical stores. If you don't know, a few months ago, or rather last year, Best Buy did the exact same thing, dropping physical media sales outside of video games from its stores. It's now noticeably harder, if not near impossible, to buy physical media. I haven't entered a Best Buy in a moment, but sales for physical discs, again, outside of video games, has dropped to the floor on Best Buy thanks to this practice. Them pushing this forward, and now Target seems to be doing the same, scaling back the presence of physical media in its stores. A spokesperson for Target tells IGN the company is, quote, transitioning the limited assortment of DVDs, unquote, it sells in stores to its website. Here's a more full quote. Moving forward, we'll offer select DVDs in stores when they are newly released or during key times throughout the year when they are more popular, like for gift giving during the holidays, unquote. So they're more so focusing on selling DVDs when they anticipate more sales, but they're still going to be deeply limited. Reports about Target backing away from DVDs first emerged earlier this week when the X account, x/store.com account at Physical Media posted that the store will, quote, stop selling physical media in store and online by 2025. That's partially true. Target tells IGN it will still sell physical games in store and online. The DVD aisle, however, will take the hardest hit. Very, very devastating. And again, for reference, last year, Best Buy confirmed it would drop DVDs and Blu-rays from its stores this year in 2024. Walmart, for a little bit of comparison, hasn't said if or when it'll do the same thing. So there's still a little bit of hope. Target is a huge one, though, that held on to selling physical media. Again, I have to stress, outside of video games. But Walmart, I guess, seems to be the last one standing. You're not going to exactly go around to a Publix or Sam's Club or Costco and buy your good old-fashioned DVD or Blu-ray or 4K Blu-ray, whatever you're into. But Walmart, of course, is a big one. If Walmart does it, it could be the end of physical media as we know it. Again, outside of video games. That's not yet. Now, Microsoft pushing their digital Xboxes and whatnot could indicate something, and Sony pushing their digital PlayStation 5. We could be seeing the end of physical media as we know it, which would suck. I love physical media. I love collecting them. I love collecting steelbooks for some of my favorite films, including Interstellar, which I highly recommend. Hopefully they don't go all the way. At least an option for collectible steelbooks. Those have to be sold pretty commonly, so I shouldn't worry about that just yet, but you never know. Also, a big leak involving a very anticipated smartphone, specifically Google's Pixel 9 Pro, reportedly with a whopping 16 gigabytes of RAM. Purported renders of the Pixel 9 have previously been released, but 9to5 Google has now pointed out some sourced photos of a prototype 6.1-inch Pixel 9 Pro. It has a picture of the boot screen, and supposedly it has this 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM on board. That's up from 12 gigabytes on the Pixel 8 Pro, along with reported 128 gigabytes of storage. It definitely looks a bit different from the Pixel 8 Pro, but to explain a bit about this RAM increase, to say it goes from 12 to 16 in layman's terms, improved multitasking and possibly better battery life, as it won't have to stress out the phone as much and keeping things organized and making sure things don't mess up the RAM, mess up the storage, mess up the phone. So 16 gigabytes is pretty impressive. I've had a smartphone since 2019. Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus. That had 12 gigabytes of RAM, and now it's 2024, and I'm still at 12 gigabytes, which is funny because I've went through, this is my third phone since the Note 10 Plus, and like I said, it has 12 gigabytes of RAM. The Galaxy S24 Ultra, which is the next step for my phone, I think also it's mostly 12 gigabytes. I think there's an 8 gigabyte option for some strange reason. I don't recommend that. But 16 gigabytes, I think, is eventually going to become the norm. Maybe we were a little too fast with 12, but I had no issue with it. Multitasking was a breeze. I'm glad they're finally moving forward, though. Figured they were eventually. What's unfortunately not moving forward is an alternative to Twitter.com/X. Post News is shutting down. The publisher-focused platform going away after less than 2 years. It emerged in the wake of Elon Musk's takeover, but now the platform's founder and former CEO of Waze, Noam Barden, writing the Post News, quote, is not growing fast enough to become a real business or a significant platform, unquote. Very devastating. In early 2023, it lifted its wait list. Around 430,000 people at the time signed up. Eventually, a mobile app was rolled out, along with a real-time notification system. Plans for more features in the future were set, but the cost of keeping the platform running seemed to have outweighed user activity. Post News, will let users download their posts on the platform starting next week. Users can also withdraw the cash balance used for article payments and creator tips until May 31st. Keeping in mind, Post News is not the only Twitter alternative that struggled to find an audience. Another one, infamously called Pebble, which to me makes me remember the classic Pebble smartwatches, but they named themselves Pebble. That shut down back in November last year. Now, I don't have to stress this because it should already be known, but there have been alternatives to x/Twitter.com for a while, and some that I personally use and I think are fine at worst. Mastodon is a decentralized platform. Blue Sky is as well. They're going strong with millions of their own users. Meta's Threads launched their Fediverse beta back in March to more easily sync up with these decentralized platforms like Mastodon. And just recently, they had probably one of the biggest boosts they've had in a while to getting users on their platform. When the Tortured Poets Department album released for Taylor Swift, she promoted it on Threads. That's right. She's now on the Threads platform, advertising her album to kick things off. Even the Threads official account replied to the post. I don't remember what it said, but they were appreciative of the fact Taylor Swift is now on this big board. And if you were wondering, she posted it on Twitter.com as well. Now, a bit of a gaming situation, and it's actually a pretty cool one. Razer releasing the Kishi Ultra gaming controller, bringing haptics to more than what you would normally anticipate. Your phone, as long as it has the USB Type-C port, which includes most Android phones and the latest iPhone, your PC, or your tablet. It's an all-rounder that can switch between these multiple devices. It has a built-in USB-C port, like I said, that can work with the latest iPhone and most Android smartphones. Razer officially saying it's compatible with the Galaxy S23 series, Pixel 6 and up, the Razer Edge, which is a pretty old one, and, quote, many other Android devices. I would hope it's the Galaxy S22 as well. I mean, come on, it's from 2022. Also seems to work perfectly fine with other phones like foldables, including the Galaxy Z Fold 5. Again, I would hope older ones as well. It can expand further up to any 8-inch Android tablet and the iPad mini, and you can even tether it as a standalone controller for your computer. It's available now for $150 and $99 respectively for the Kishi Ultra and the Kishi V2 USB-C. So that is a less expensive version that supports wired play on PC-Pad, so a little less capable. The big thing about it is the inclusion of Razer's Sensa HD immersive haptics. Company claiming it can take any audio from anywhere and convert it into haptics. Pretty impressive stuff. It's the first commercially available Razer product to feature the Sensa haptics, allowing people, the mainstream, to try it out. And maybe it'll defy expectations. Now, it won't defy expectations if you are an iOS user. The Sensa haptics don't support the operating system, only supporting Android 12 or above and Windows 11. Now, for all this to work, you do need to download what's called the Razer Nexus app, available for iOS and Android, for the Kishi Ultra to work. The app isn't just to do all the Sensa haptics, but it can also launch mobile games and is integrated with numerous platforms, including Apple Arcade, Xbox Game Pass, and the Google Play Store. So not entirely certain how it works directly with the PC version, or rather connecting to a PC with the Sensa haptics if you need the app. Maybe you don't need the app, but it says you do on mobile. Bit of an unfortunate situation to require an app for something, but if it's that capable, especially for these Sensa haptics, then I can see it to a degree. What I can also see and appreciate is price cuts. We love lowering prices, right? So the Meta Quest 2 VR headset that at one point was $400, but was $300 for a while, late last year had a lot of deep sale that made it $250, and now it's official to be $200 after it being on sale for that price for nearly a month. That's the new sticker price for the virtual reality headset the company announced earlier this week. Half of what it costed back in 2020. Some accessories also getting a permanent price cut, including the highly recommended Elite Strap with battery. So now it's a noticeable price difference compared to Meta's flagship headset, the Quest 3, which I own and absolutely recommend because it actually just recently received an update I mentioned last week, V64, that improved pass-through quality, and I can safely say it is completely correct. However, from what I know, outside of mixed reality titles, the Quest 3 still doesn't have any exclusives that I can think of, so the Quest 2, supporting all of that, just lower quality, makes it a heck of a value for a VR headset at $200, even though the value is getting a bit long in the tooth from it being released back in 2020. It still holds up, especially if you're mainly going to use it for maybe a PC headset or for more basic titles. Maybe you just want something that opens YouTube in front of you or whatnot. I recommend it. I recommend a VR headset in general. I think it can be life-changing, especially the more capable Quest 3 that has the color pass-through and quality mixed reality capabilities. But keeping in mind the Quest 2, it makes sense that they're going to continue supporting it. Meta CTO Andrew Bosworth said to The Verge they expect first-party games to support Quest 2 for, quote, quite a while, unquote, last June. So, and of course, millions more reasons to support the Quest 2. 20 million were sold as of February last year. So, a lot of Quest users out there. It makes sense for the Quest 2 to continue being supported, at least for the foreseeable future. Eventually, there will be exclusive games for the Quest 3 and that are not mixed reality focused. And when that happens, well, I mean, the Quest 2 has been around for a while, and it would be cool for it to continue being around for the sake of the 20 million people that have one as of early last year. I can't even imagine how many more people must have one now, and how many will probably get it at its great $200 price point. Speaking of Meta, a big thing involving them with AI has come up, but I will leave that to the end for futurology. Until then, bit of an interesting tidbit I gotta mention, the Xbox credit card. Now, Microsoft specifically has been testing this Xbox credit card for more than 6 months, and it is now effective this week, opening it up to everyone. So I'm not going to be wishy-washy and advertise the heck out of this, but it is very weird and probably something I personally don't think I can recommend, at least without getting sponsored. The Xbox MasterCard, that's what it is, has some very interesting cash back. For example, it's 5% cash back, or rather 5 times card points. I'm taking this directly from Xbox Wire, on eligible products in the Microsoft Store. 3 times card points for streaming services, 3 times card points for Grubhub and DoorDash, delivery services, dining specifically, and 1 times card points for everyday purchases. What I assume is 1 time, or card points, maybe 1 might be a penny. That's usually how it works for credit cards. 1 point is usually like a penny or some increment like that. A pretty nice benefit, but again, this is all for if you're a die-hard, like I said, Xbox video gamer. For example, the 5 times card points is only for the Microsoft Store. which is a big, big restriction. No annual fee is nice, but if you are interested in a credit card and you're a big gamer, there are other options that are probably going to be more beneficial. Unless you're the kind of person that wants to have every credit card under the sun that has no annual fee, in which case, have at it. And if you are a new Game Pass member, or rather after you first purchase, they give you 3 months of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So unfortunate that if you're a current member, you can't use it on yourself, but it actually says right here, current Game Pass members can easily gift it to a friend or family member so everyone can join the fun. So, there's some basics here or there. It's a no annual fee card, so there's always going to be restrictions. As someone that knows a lot about credit cards and all of its intricacies and whatnot, it makes sense why they're so adamant about the whole ordeal. By the way, a little bit of an update on Meta. Going back to that, if you are in Turkey, Meta will be temporarily shutting down the platform starting April 29th due to a temporary injunction from the Turkish Competition Authority ruling that linking threads and Instagram data without user opt-in abuses Meta's social media dominance. Turkish Threads users can either delete their profiles or deactivate them until or if the service gets turned back on. A little bit of a note by TechCrunch, the company had previously fined Meta $18.6 million in 2022 for data sharing across its apps. So big watch out there for people in Turkey that you'll be losing access to Threads, at least temporarily. Now, before I go into the final few big topics that I want to end off the podcast with, there's actually one more thing I wanted to mention and to get things over with, and it involves Nintendo's recent Spring Indie World event. It was in recent days, earlier this week specifically, that they gave indie developers, as they do every now and then, an opportunity to show off all of their big boy titles that are coming up and are for Nintendo Switch, whether exclusively, timed exclusive, or just to say, hey, we're making it. A bit of a few titles here or there. A sequel to a beloved indie title, steampunk pirate strategy game, SteamWorld Heist, returning this summer, specifically August 8th, also coming to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Beloved Apple Arcade hit is also coming to the Switch. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate, making the jump from the subscription service to Nintendo Switch when it launches in, I think it's a timed exclusive, so that's a big one. WayForward, which is the studio behind beloved titles including Shantae and River City Girls, back with a new 2D action game called Yars Rising, a very sci-fi title launching on the Switch later this year. So, a big deal. Wasn't very long, nothing too groundbreaking, but it's good that indie developers are given an opportunity to show off their strengths and what's coming up for the sake of everyone that could want to enjoy it. All right, final few topics, and they're big ones. First of all, video game emulators on the Apple's App Store. This is a big one. I think I mentioned in recent weeks the fact that these sort of apps that allow you to emulate beloved titles from previous generations, being on the iPhone and iOS in general is a huge deal. Of course, these have been around for probably more than a decade at this point on general Android smartphones, but Apple has always had this big restriction that you can't have gaming emulator on the App Store. That changed around the time third-party app stores were introduced, because one of them, I think the Alt Store, started to push itself forward in the PAL region, obviously, European Union, where it's allowed to have these third-party app stores to say, hey, we have a gaming emulator now you can download. Apple changed their stance and has made it official to be allowed in anywhere, at least in the US. So this is a big deal. For example, one of them being the Delta game emulator, a free gaming emulator where outside the EU, you can find it on Apple's actual store, but in the EU, it will be on the third-party Alt Store PAL app, which I think actually costs money to download because of some very ridiculous fee that Apple's enforcing on its third-party marketplaces, but I won't get into that too much. You could definitely do your own research, as I always recommend. The Delta emulator releasing a few days ago, marking the first significant and officially sanctioned game emulator for the iPhone since Apple began allowing them, supporting a wide range of consoles from the NES to the N64, and of course other platforms including the Sega Genesis. It's not just Nintendo platforms. Some example screenshots including games being played from the Game Boy Advance and even Nintendo DS, and they look pretty respectable. I don't even think these exist or anything like this exists to this official looking design on Android. At least you can probably get custom layouts for some games, and I think MGBA is already pretty well made for its Game Boy Advance emulation and look and feel, its aesthetics and whatnot. But this is obviously a huge deal because it's iOS. It hasn't been A-OK for a very long time, and now it is. It even supports Bluetooth controllers like the Xbox One and Series controllers and PlayStation 5 controllers. The app lets you customize the layout and set extra buttons for things like quick save states or even the all-original old-school fast-forward capability. So for those older titles that had ridiculously long cutscenes, well, fast-forward is alive and well. It's usually a staple for emulators, so that's not a surprising thing. Delta even works with some of the quirkier Nintendo input methods, including the gyroscope in WarioWare Twisted, or even microphone controls in Nintendo DS games. Now, I think for microphone controls, those are pretty common in DS emulators, but using the gyroscope in others is actually a pretty big deal. I think that was something in very few Game Boy Advance titles that had to be in the cartridge itself. Obviously, the Game Boy Advance did not have a gyroscope built in. It was way too ahead of its time for that. Delta also has other touches, including automatically grabbing box art for your games and even customizing that art using its built-in database or your own custom images. Again, that seems pretty normal for in emulator. Now, a small number of other emulators did beat Delta to the punch of joining the world of Apple's App Store, including one that was called iGBA, that actually directly ripped off Testut's GBA for iOS code and an NES emulator called Bimmy. Both were short-lived, as Apple took down iGBA over spam and copyright App Store rule violations, and Bimmy's developer got cold feet in light of Nintendo's recent crackdown on emulators, the big one being the Yuzu Switch emulator that I talked about a few weeks back. Now, keep in mind, Delta isn't new. If you really wanted to get an emulator on your iPhone, it hasn't been the end of the world to reach it. The original 1.0 version released back in 2019 alongside the original Alt Store alternative to jailbreaking. So, as it's technically been through 5 years of these improvements and bug fixing and new features, it'll probably be one of the most polished emulation experiences on the iPhone for a while. Now, when will RetroArch be released to its capacity on the iPhone is uncertain, but when that happens, that's also going to be as well. What is a huge deal also, although not in the greatest terms, involves broadcast TV. Yes, it still exists, and yes, it is going through some craziness that I would love to put into an entire episode, but it would make this episode an extra probably an hour. So it involves what's called Next-Gen TV, or more technically, ATSC 3.0, and it is very capable. Specifically, it allows you to, this new technology allows for internet connectivity being more integrated, which means personalized ads, higher picture quality and sound quality, for example, Dolby Atmos support, which means obviously better surround sound, and 4K high dynamic range or HDR support, obviously a huge deal, but it also introduces the capability of DRM, digital rights management, which I have a huge thorn to pick with for that because capability and potential of actually being the end of broadcast TV, and a scary amount of people agree. So, again, I'm not going to get into that too much, but there is a new bit of technology being put forward that allows more capability when you're watching your local over-the-air channel. For example, a company called Roxy, which was a big deal back at CES, showed off an app that streamed music over the airwaves to your ATSC 3.0 compatible TV, letting you skip tracks, choose genres, and interact it like a traditional smart TV app. broadcasters all over the country seem to be eager to implement this technology into their channels. And yeah, actually a pretty big deal, but that's not the only thing. This new partnership isn't really for Roxy's music app, at least not entirely. It's for the underlying technology called Fast Stream, allowing people to essentially have a DVR for live stream without any additional hardware, Wi-Fi, or fees required. I'm going to be very curious how that works. This means that stations could soon begin airing local news that you can skip through, pause, or even restart from the beginning. And even though ATSC 3.0's adoption has been slow so far, the number is going up as we speak. It's not the only thing happening, though. This was a big deal earlier this week. NBC Universal announced its own personalized broadcast experience, providing an experience similar to Roxy's. So you can restart applicable programs in progress. However, there's also going to be hyper-localized elements for shows like The Today Show, weather forecasts and severe weather alerts, as well as clips, full episodes, and alternate programming. Unlike Roxy's Big News, where it's rolling out slowly, stations right now have this capability, select ones, specifically ones in New York, Los Angeles, Miami, and Philadelphia. I think they're all owned and operated, so that is not a big surprise. Now, this tech seems to be coming from Ease Live, another company investing in broadcasting over ATSC 3.0 with a focus more on sports. So it makes sense with the Olympics coming in the coming months, and then the big waiting all day for Sunday Night Football that will eventually kick back up several months from now. I am deeply, deeply waiting for Sunday Night Football. I miss it. United Football League, I'm sorry. You guys are trying your best, but it's just not to the point of even close to NFL. Doesn't help that I don't have a home team, but yeah. Can't wait for all this. Unfortunately, won't say which, but one of the stations I mentioned for NBC Universal is actually my home station, or at least close to me. But it's encrypted, and the only tuner I have that supports ATSC 3.0 is the HD Home Run Flex 4K made by Silicon Dust. Absolutely fantastic otherwise, but it does not, as of now, support encryption in any capacity, so I'm unable to watch it in this cool little form. But I did see someone record a video of how it all works, and it is pretty impressive. Even they said this is probably one of the best implementations of this new special technology, putting itself over an over-the-air stream. It just sucks a little bit that seems to require the internet entirely. This sort of technology by Roxy seems to be able to work at least to a capacity without needing internet. But this new streaming online internet thing with the NBC stations requires it entirely. Like I said, not even a skeleton of sorts that would say, oh, if you want more access, more capability, connect to the internet. No, nothing like that. Without internet, it's just the TV channel. With internet, it's actually very capable. Just got to watch out for the fact that it is opt-out for personalized advertising. So make sure you do that if you are in one of those markets or as they roll it out further. Now, a big one. The final topic. It is filling in for futurology. As I said before, AI is here, there, and everywhere. And Meta is in. They've been introducing some big things involving their next major AI model, Llama 3. And it is everywhere. It is everything all at once. They implemented it into Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, although I don't think it's in Threads. One cool thing that I actually tried out a bit is real-time AI image generation, now available for some WhatsApp users. It says it's in beta, but I think it's now for maybe everyone if your app is up to date. As soon as you start typing a text-to-image prompt in a chat with Meta AI, it'll show you the image changing as you add more detail. Now, it won't be a very high-quality version. Once you actually send over the request, it'll give you that image, but then make a higher-quality version that could actually be completely different from personal experience. But this is a huge deal. This Meta AI assistant is the only chatbot as of now that integrates directly with real-time search results from both Bing and Google, Meta deciding when either search engine is used to answer a prompt. It's very extraordinary, very capable, and Meta is going all out. I would like to see more of this integration maybe with Threads or maybe the MetaQuest VR headsets, having your own assistant. You already have a voice assistant in the MetaQuest headsets. If this could use the Llama 3 AI model, that'd be a big deal. So, and it was also the model performance of its instruct capability was compared, both its smaller one that's less capable but meant to be faster, lightweight, and maybe run locally, to its big boy one, its larger one. It was compared to published results by Gemini, which is what Google is making, and other ones including Mistral for its smaller one and Claude 3 for its bigger one, and it looks to dominate almost across the board. So it looks like it's very capable. Again, it's AI, so you got to be careful with it, but a big deal. And I mean, the fight is on. Meta wants it all. Are they going to get it? We'll know soon. And with that, the week is over. Tune in again next week for more of the latest and greatest. Cherish every day you have with your loved ones. That'll be it for me. Take care of yourselves, and have a good morning, afternoon, evening, day or night.